Hello, students. It's your boy, Mr. Stevenson. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the one of the new set works for GCSE music. We're talking about release from Afro Celt sound system. If it's the first one of these you've watched, it would be advisable to make some notes while you're watching this. This is all stuff that could well turn up in one of the exams. So let's get to it. So first of all, a bit of background on how this band were formed and how they kind of created their sound. The leader of the band, Simon Emerson, would have weekly meetings with musicians from all types of different cultures at Real World Studios, which is run by Peter Gabriel, who you may want to check out. He's great. And originally, before they started really writing anything, they would just improvise over some techno drum loops that he'd created. So imagine like a pounding, four to the floor, kick drum, and these guys would improvise on their, vast array of different instruments, including some synthesizers and some kind of folk instruments as well. And these guys all spoke in different languages, which means, the vast majority of the communication that these guys did was actually through the music rather than through words, because they didn't have a common language. And the main kind of cultural fusion, if you like, that Simon Emerson wanted to put across was the fusion of African and Irish culture. We'll talk about how he's achieved that throughout this video. The lead vocal of this piece of music is by Sinead O'Connor, who you may well have heard before, with her famous song "Nothing Compares to You," which is actually written by Prince. And she was asked to sing the lead vocal on this tune. Just because she happened to be in the studio next door. It's kind of one of those happy accidents in music. The instruments that you hear in this piece of music are a synthesizer, several in fact synthesizers. A synthesizer or synth is a keyboard type instrument which has various parameters or variables, things the player can adjust to alter the sound. And a drum machine. Drum machine works by the user programs in a pattern of drums, which you press play, it goes round and round and round. That creates the kind of techno loops that you get. There's other percussion in this one, including a shaker. I should just say the synth and the drum machine, that they are the electronic category instruments in this. There's other percussion, including a shaker and a whole load of folk instruments, including William pipes, which are kind of like bagpipes. They operate in the same way, except air is pumped into them using a bellows and the elbow rather than by blowing into them. A tin whistle, a low-pitched tin whistle. Something called a hurdy-gurdy. The way that works is there are several keys which kind of release strings to be played, and something like I don't know how you call it, something that you turn that activates like a violin bow, and the strings that are being released, it goes across them, those strings played. You should see a picture of that on screen now as well. A kora, which is a type of African harp, and an Irish bodhrán, which is a large drum. You might have seen referred to as a Guinness drum in the past. Several of these instruments play solos in these. I'll talk about that in a little while. The other sounds you will hear in this are the lead vocal, which, as I said, is made up on it, and another vocal, which is a male vocal, a male African guy, which is in the traditional African griot style. African griots are storytellers who sing and tell stories. Structurally, there is a structure there, but it is very free-flowing and improvisatory. One could imagine, because of the nature of this tune, with lots of solos and drone sections, when these guys play this live, they would probably not have a set structure, and certain sections would go on for longer, certain sections would go on for shorter, depending on how the audience was reacting to it. And it's the sort of thing that when these guys would play it live, they would give each other a nod for when to change sections. Tonality, it is kind of largely in the key of C. It opens with a drone of a C note, which is what creates the key. That drone is like a tonal note. It creates the harmonic foundation for all of the other stuff. It is in the Aeolian mode. Modes are different ways of playing scales. Now, some of you will only know of major and minor modes. The way a mode is determined is intervals between the notes, either tones or semitones. The pattern for the Aeolian mode, there are a whole bunch of different modes that can be used based on the use of either tones or semitone intervals. To give you an idea of how these work, grab a keyboard and play a scale going from one note to the same note an octave up and back down. So for instance, start on C, C to C and back down, and that is a major key. Now each starting note will give you a different pattern of tones and semitones, and therefore a different note. Have a go at doing that just now. And then maybe take a simple melody, Mary Had a Little Lamb or whatever, and play that in each different mode. Figure out which ones that you like, which ones you don't like, which ones you might use in some of your music even. It doesn't really have a chord pattern. But it does, to keep it in the kind of the C sort of key. It's actually C minor, sorry. There is an ostinato on an accordion, which is just a pumping C minor chord, and it's used kind of in the same way that synthesizers would be in dance music. You should be hearing that happening now. An important aspect of this one is the use of music technology and use of the studio as an instrument. So we've spoke about the use of synthesizers. Go into a bit more depth about that. I said earlier it starts with a synth drone, that is a single held note. It also uses a filter sweep. A filter sweep is when it kind of sounds like the synth is opening up, if you like that. And the way that's achieved is the EQ is given a cutoff, which means it only lets the very low frequencies through, very low basic frequencies in that synth note. And the cutoff is gradually moved so it opens up until all of the note is coming through. And it gives that nice sense of sort of building. And you've heard this in any kind of dance music loads and loads of times. Also, there is some use of a pad tone on a synth. A pad is one of the main types of synthesizer sounds, and it's used for long held chords. Um, called a pad, I guess, because it kind of it gives that harmonic foundation. So it's not normally a harsh sound. It's normally a gentle sort of building sound. And these synth pad chords are generally just in the key of C minor. A useful point to remember for that, talking about the key of C minor, because it so rarely changes the chord that is being heard. It is known as static harmony, which is when something stays on one chord for a sustained period of time. There are also lots of loops, including the aforementioned drum loops. There are some synth loops and some pre-recorded loops of some of the instruments as well. When played live, someone would have a program such as Ableton, which is a live looping software, and a member of the band would just be fading these in and out. And fading in and out is another important aspect of this track as well. There are some kind of gradual changes in the balance of each instrument, which would be achieved by if you've ever used Logic or Pro Tools or anything like that. You should know what track automation is, where you can automatically make something go up or down in volume. There's lots of changes in the balance, and also a lot of use of the stereo field, which is your left and right of each instrument. Sometimes stuff is moved from one side to another, but it is a very kind of a wide, if you like, recording. If you listen with headphones, you'll hear that there are bits of it here, there, and everywhere. And you will be expected to to be able to understand this stuff. And that, there's no point in me going through all of the changes in balance and panning and texture in this piece of music, because you'd never remember it all. You would rather be expected to be able to hear it and to figure it out. So my advice would be, this would be a good little task to do actually, to listen to each instrument in isolation, perhaps on other pieces, so you know what everything sounds like, and just play a random 40 seconds from anywhere in the piece. And first of all, create a diagram of the panning. So if you imagine the centre being the listener, the left being the left, and the right being the right, you would then listen back to that and write out where each instrument is in terms of the panning. To draw it as a diagram, like if you were the listener and watching it, where would everyone be on stage, so you could hear them coming from where you're hearing it. And then describe all of the changes in texture. What comes in, what comes out, what's at the front, what's the dominant instrument at that point. And do that a couple of times, just a random 40 seconds of the track each time. And that will be really helpful for helping you guys to understand the structure and the different textures in this piece. Okay, in terms of rhythm, the piece starts with the drone in free timing, so that is without any rhythm at all. And the main, when the rhythm kicks in, the main rhythm, the rhythmic backbone of the piece, if you like, is a loop on the Irish bodhrán. It's a simple rhythmic ostinato, which is repeated throughout the piece with some variations, but it largely remains the same. And there are points of rhythmic interest created with the player's use of accenting. This isn't marked on the score. It's down to taste and down to the player to do that however they want. So accenting, that is to play certain notes louder in places. Other percussion instruments come in and out playing their own rhythmic ostinatos, different to that of the bodhrán, which makes this a polyrhythmic piece of music. Polyrhythmic meaning a piece of music featuring multiple simultaneous rhythms. There are three solos in this track, and they basically come one after the other. The first is that of the William pipes. You should be hearing that now. That is followed by a solo on the low whistle, which is a larger version of the whistle. You should be hearing that now. And then there is a solo on the hurdy-gurdy, which you should be hearing now. Now, an important thing to know about is the way that these instruments are played and the way that they can be played. So if something is written in the way that it can be played by that instrument, it can be referred to as idiomatic. So to be within an instrumental idiom means that a part is within the playable range of that instrument. So that can mean in terms of the range in pitch, it could mean the speed, it could mean, say for instance, not writing chords for an instrument that can only play one note. So it would be very much advisable to look into how these instruments make sound and just write a few sentences on how all of the solos are idiomatic. So we're going to look at the structure now. I'll not go over the whole thing. I will leave you to figure that out, create a little structure plan for it. But let's look at the kind of the key areas of it. So first of all, in the introduction, it opens with that synth pad drone that we spoke about, and there is no meter or time signature until the bodhran enters, and instruments build and come in and come out over that, including the kora and the male vocal, which comes in early. First verse, it is sung by Sinead O'Connor, and then that verse, by the way, is in English, one of 3 languages in this piece. And at 2 minutes and 15, we hear quite an important part for the first time, which is this chromatic build that you should be hearing now. Reach out and touch me. Make effort to speak to me. Call out and you'll hear me. Be happy for me. Now, we know that the chromatic scale is all of the notes. So an ascending in chromatics would mean just going up one note at a time. So this one, it builds chromatically from G to B flat. So that means it goes G, A flat, A, B flat. If you play that on a keyboard, you will notice that is all of the notes from G to G flat. Each note goes on for 2 bars. Listen to that again and listen to how that gradual increase in the pitch just gives it a sense of building tension. A little break after that, and then we're into verse 2, where a different member of the band sings this one in Gaelic. This verse again ends with the chromatic line, and the bass drops out over that. And then everything comes back in, and again it's like dance music. When everything comes back in with the solos at 3 minutes and 51, the bass re-enters, making the piece sound fuller. It's kind of like a bass drop in dance music. That continues for a while with a break in the middle of it. Verse 3, we're back to Sinead O'Connor singing, and then there is a build followed by an outro, and that is the track. Obviously this isn't a comprehensive guide, but I feel like I've covered most of the main points. Do a bit of your own research. If you have any questions for me, do get in touch. See if you can find any more resources for this one online. Write some questions of your own, test yourselves. Cool stuff. Thanks for watching. See you later.